Hello, I'm Ella. We're talking about pet bereavement today, which is one of the worst feelings in the world. I've had so many pets since my childhood, and it never gets any easier dealing with their death. I miss all of them so much, no matter how much time passes. Whether your pet has died, is old or sick, we know exactly how distraught and bereft you feel. Today, we're sharing our personal experiences, feelings, and advice on how to cope during such a terribly sad and emotional time. I'm joined by Dr. Jonathan Marshall. He's a top psychologist and a former professor. He's a Stanford and Harvard graduate, and Jonathan has always been available and an invaluable source of comforting advice when my beloved fur kids have died. Mary Sue is the founder of Oasis Second Chance Animal Shelter in Singapore. She's been rescuing pets for over 40 years and has had more than her fair share of pet loss. And Victoria Toy, former practicing lawyer, an Oxford graduate and a passionate pet lover. Vicky is a gem at being an advocate for animals, rehoming pets and giving some practical advice. So let's start with a question. Why is pet loss so hurtful? Jonathan? Big question.
It's a huge question. I think it's not whether or not it's a pet or a human. It's how we attach to that thing that we've lost. And for some people, a pet is just a thing and they don't really interact with it. But for others, it's the closest thing. It's the closest being to them. So you're losing a tremendous sense of intimacy and comfort and support and a relationship, a deep relationship.
Yeah.
I think it's very much that animals give us that sort of non-complex love, which is so pure, which we don't get in our human relationships. That's not to say that they're not cognitively complex. They are. But our relationship with them is so much more straightforward compared to our human interactions.
Yeah, and I always feel it, no matter how badly dressed you are and how much in need of a shower you are.
They're there, good days, bad days, and
they don't
everything
care.
between.
They accept you exactly as you are. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
Mary?
It's something, it's a sort of relationship I think you can never find anywhere else. They really love you, and they give you a lot of comfort, joy, and tremendous happiness. Actually, you feel so happy when you're with them.
And I think a big part of it is that animals form part of your daily routine. So you obviously take them out for their walk. You have your time for cuddles. You have them sleep between your feet on the bed. They're so much part of your life. So when they do go,
It's true. I think when I lost my dog and I sat and reflected afterwards, and I realised that over the course of the 4 years, I'd actually spent more time with her than I had with family or friends or anyone. She sat at my feet when I'm working during the day. She slept on the bed at nighttime, weekends. She was my companion in everything. So it really was a massive, deep loss, sense of grief when she died, because I was with her more than anyone.
Yeah. So Jonathan, I keep reading about the stages of grief. So when you have a loss, that people go through several different stages. Well, how do you see that?
The research on it's sort of fascinating, but it's interesting in terms of generalizations. If a client of mine has lost a pet or a person, I encourage them not to think too much about the stages of grief. Like, work it out on your own, because those stages don't mean much for an individual, but they are denial. So when you get the bad news that your dog is dead or whatever it might be, there's a sense of, no, you've got it wrong. That we kind of deny that that's the case. We then become very angry, like, how dare you? You screwed up. You the vet, you the physician. And then we kind of get into what they call the bargaining phase, where, like, God, bring them back to life and I promise I'll never lie again. Or, if only I hadn't done this, then this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. If I hadn't been driving so fast. And so we get into sort of this they call the bargaining phase. And then there's a depression phase often, which is just the straight sadness of loss, the sense of hopelessness, the sense of overwhelm, confusion, the sense of identity loss as well. And in theory, then it comes to acceptance. But about 10% of people, be it losing a family member or losing a pet, that becomes a very difficult process. And after a year, one would expect there to be improvement. But in about 10% of cases, there isn't. And that's the newest psychological disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Psychologists, is prolonged grief disorder. This idea that some people actually just don't make it through that phase.
And what can you do if you find it hard to get through the grief?
Yeah, I think it's very tough, especially when it's a pet, because if it's a human, there's social support. People get it. You know, oh my God, you've lost a family member. But when it's a pet, there can be an attitude of just get over it.
Yeah.
Unless you know other pet owners. So I think support groups, potentially therapy or counseling, talking to people who do get it, people who don't find you being annoying by wanting to show photographs of your pet. I think that can be really important.
I remember a boyfriend once saying to me, "Why are you so upset? It's only a dog."
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's a lack of validation.
That was it for me. He was gone. It's like, I love my dog more than I love you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was over. I knew I couldn't be with someone who didn't understand that this dog was my whole world. And
And it's so intimate that the majority of dog owners think their dog is psychic. And I'm not saying the dog is or isn't psychic, but it's such an incredible sense of closeness. And the research on the psychic stuff suggests that doesn't support the idea that animals are psychic or that pets are psychic.
so how can you explain then when you're 10 minutes away from home and
I
your
know.
dogs are all at the front door getting excited? I mean, I always know that's the case. So
I think the biggest challenge for me when I've been grieving for my pets has been that lack of validation by friends and family. And it really added to my sense of isolation in my sort of grief journey, because I felt that I couldn't sit and cry openly in front of my friends and relatives because they would just devalue it as, for goodness sake, it's a dog or a cat. You know, it's not a human being, but my grief felt comparative.
overreacting and you're being dramatic, and it's just an animal. Get a new one, you know.
And I think for many people, it is as dramatic.
Yeah.
But I mean, even for shelter dogs, I have 90 of them. Well, it peaked at 130.
Wow.
I still feel very sad when any one of them pass away because, you know, you build up the bond with them. Dogs are just incredibly
Loving.
lovable. You know, they respond so well to you, and they're always so grateful, and they appreciate you. So when they pass away, it's always very heartbreaking for me. Any one of them, and I know all my dogs, every one of them by name. I bond with all of them, so I grow to love them like my children.
Yes.
So when they pass away, I really feel very sad.
Yeah. Talking about the heartbreak of pet loss. I mean, I literally feel like my heart's covered in scars and they never heal.
Yeah, but you know, it's something like when people ask me how I feel, I said, you know, it's of course very heartbreaking, but I said I think I have no more heart left because it's all broken. You know, everyone that dies, it really takes a part of me away. I really miss them. Even now, sometimes, you know, I sit back and I think of all the dogs that have gone through my life. I really miss them. I still miss them.
I know. Even childhood pets. I mean, I remember I had a cat as a little girl and I still cry for her. It's ridiculous. It's now decades and decades later. And yet when those tears come out, they're so current, which is really hard to deal with.
And I think a lot of people say that when they've lost a pet, it's just so painful. They just don't want to repeat that with another pet and open themselves up to that feeling of vulnerability again. And I really understand it because it is so raw. Everybody obviously
We
has
all
their
think
own
that way. Why are we doing this?
dealing with it.
They rip out your hearts when
No,
they
but
go.
I always tell people, you know, well, just think of it. You have given a dog a very good life. And that dog lived a very happy life. So the dog has gone. So what you have to do now is transfer that same amount of privileged love and everything to another unfortunate dog.
Yes, I fully agree. I feel like it's even a responsibility to pass it on and move the baton forward and
Give
help
another dog a chance.
Yeah, and I'm sure that our dogs and cats that have passed would actually want that. Yeah. Okay, so next we're going to talk about our personal stories of pet loss. So we might need some Kleenex. Okay, so let's start with Vicky. So Vicky, I know you're a massive guinea pig fan.
Oh, I've had, yes, I mean, guinea pigs and dogs, but I guess the one that I'd probably talk about that resonates the most is my Chihuahua, Fiona, who came to me in a very sorry state, ex-breeding, female, typical story. So she arrived and she was in a very poor condition. And I didn't have her very long, actually. Fortunately, I only had her for about 4 years. And then in the end, I made the ethical decision to actually euthanize her. I had complete clarity that that was the right decision on veterinary grounds. But it was still one of the most brutal and painful decisions I've ever had to make. And she died in my arms, but it was terribly, terribly sad. And my coping mechanism after she died was initially, I'm not having another dog. It's just too much. I can't go through this again. And then my other dog was pining for her so much, she actually stopped eating. And I took her to the vet, and the vet said, she's grieving. The only way to fix this is to get another dog. And I was absolutely adamant that it was way too soon. And then
somebody turns up.
Somebody, no names here, somebody turns up with another dog when I was least expecting it. I thought she was coming around for dinner.
I was supposed to bring a bottle of wine.
Exactly.
I brought a little dog under my arm.
Not a puppy, a rescue dog, and another soul dog. And
luckily, Vicky said yes.
Yes, of course. And my other dog absolutely adopted her and started eating. And she, I think, resonates with what you said. I was able to channel all of that pain around Fiona into my love for Olivia. And that actually was a huge coping mechanism. I still think about Fiona all the time. I still sleep with her fur under my pillow. She's not gone, but all of that love, and I think they say that grief is when you love somebody and it's got nowhere to go. All of that love now is sort of on my gorgeous Olivia. So that was very much my experience of grief after Fee died.
It's hard not to tear up, isn't it? I was going to tell you about Rosemary. So Rosemary was also a breeding farm dog, and we're going to show you the photo now that she was in a horrific state when I got her. I mean, she was so bad I thought she would need putting down or she would die. And, you know, even after one day staying at my home, I saw when she woke up, she was stretching and she gave me a huge smile. And that's when I realized, you know, she's got what it takes to turn it around. So after a lot of TLC and good nutrition, she started blooming, and she was the loveliest, gentlest, loving dog, which, considering what a shitty start she'd had in a breeding farm and how cruelly and neglectfully she'd been treated, she was incredibly good with people and loving and the most wonderful dog. And she actually did live a very long time. She became a doddery old lady, but I could tell she loved every moment living in my apartment, and she always listened in on every conversation. It was quite strange like that. I felt she was always part of a conversation, listening in, and I took her to the vet because I felt like something was off and she was just not herself. And the vet looked at her vitals and said, everything's great. She should keep going. And then 2 days later, when I was out, she died, and it was, you know, I felt my guts just pass through my body. It's such a physical reaction. And I was driving at the time, and on the radio, a song came on. And I know it sounds corny, but I've had the time of my life, and I owe it all to you.
No, it does. The grief, it hits you in waves as well. Even now, sometimes when I'm walking in Fiona's favourite park, you just get this wave of emotion. Or you can hear a song, which sometimes I used to play to Fiona at home, and it hits you when you're least expecting it.
Yeah.
And even Christmas approaching, I always think, call me sentimental, but it's always a very challenging time of year sometimes, because you sit down and you sort of make your little gifts for your pets, and there's always one missing. And so they're always still there. We always still carry them in our hearts.
And I know, again, it sounds corny, but I feel like they are angelic beings, and they come here and they look after you, and then they fly off to wherever they're going to, but they make such a huge impact. They really touch your heart, and you never forget them.
Who was your soul dog? You probably had lots of soul dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, every passing is very painful, and especially for my shelter, because we also take in a lot of handicapped dogs, very sick dogs. We even took in, there was this crazy woman who was taking in dogs to starve them to death.
Really?
Yep.
Oh my God.
And we took in 7 of those dying dogs. They were in terrible condition, especially one called Hope. She was really just a skeleton, and she couldn't even stand up. And the vet said, and she had a biometra, which is quite deadly. I think it's very difficult. So the vet said, you have to put her down. So I said, no, I even if it's just for another day of her life, I still want her to experience love. I said, the poor thing. Then I spoke to our own vet, and then she said, why don't you bring her to me? I will try. And she did, and she took over, and she did the operation, and it was successful. And Hope lived for another 2 years with us. A very, very cute little girl. And then when she died, we were all, we said, well, we have given a very good second chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I agree that these little rescued dogs and cats, they all deserve love, and to know what love feels like.
I have so many. I think I've gone through so many, because we take in some dying dogs as well. We know the dog is dying. Like an old lady called me one day and said, "Oh, Mary, can you help this dog? It's by the roadside, crying, unable to stand up." And then she was there with an umbrella, shading him from the hot sun. So we went down and we took him, sent him to the vet. Of course, it cost us a lot of money. It was in very bad condition, but he made it for 2 years with us. Yeah. Then he passed on.
Amazing. Bless.
So this is what we do.
And then the last thing I wanted to share is a story about community cats. So on the road that I live, we had a couple of community cats. And it was just amazing how it really did create a sense of community. And people used to talk about them and stop on their walk to work just to have a couple of minutes talk next to cats. And it was a really great way of everyone coming together and caring about these cats. So we had Gracie and Ginger Fella, and they absolutely adored each other, these 2 cats. And then Gracie, literally one day she's kind of rubbing up against my legs and wanting to be stroked, and she was ever so sweet. And then the next day, a truck had run her over, and completely she was splattered everywhere. And just the sense of grief on our road was incredible. I mean, this little stray cat evoked an outpouring of terrible grief.
Well, they can sometimes bring out the best in us. Sometimes, unfortunately, they can bring out the worst in people as well. But I like to think that for the most part, animals can bring out the best in us.
Definitely. Okay, so Jonathan, if somebody has just lost their pet, what can they expect to, their emotions to feel like at this point, and how to deal with them?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these formulas and the research suggesting that these are the feelings you'll have. But actually, I don't, when a client has just lost a pet, I typically don't recommend even thinking about those things. It's what's your experience? Who are you safe with talking about it? Do you want to talk about it with me? And sometimes even clients I've had for many years, and I know their pets very well, will say, no, I don't want to talk about it. And to just respect that distance, or some of them will. Some things that I've found helpful is let's go through a photo album if they feel ready for it. Often,
And if you've had to euthanize your pet,
yeah,
which, I honestly felt the first time I had to do that, I felt like I was finally a grown up. It was the weirdest thing. It was like the biggest decision of my life in a way. And it was incredibly nerve-wracking and scary, and I had mixed feelings because part of you never wants your pet to leave you, but the other part of you knows it's suffering and it's the humane thing to do. So you're conflicted, and there's all these emotions, and it can weigh on you, that experience.
I think the guilt, even when it's sort of well-intentioned euthanasia, but in some cases it'll be the guilt of abuse. I didn't keep the dogs in the house when I laid poison in the garden for whatever creature it was, or I knew the dog would suffer and I didn't care, and now the dog is dead. That you hear these stories, and it's so hard because you've got guilt and grief, and sometimes guilt, which you kind of go, well, yeah, maybe you should feel guilty. You can't help but feel some of that when you hear stories of abuse. But to kind of go, sometimes what I recommend clients do is imagine a conversation with your pet. What would your pet want for you now? And I've very rarely heard my pet would want me to suffer. I normally hear my pet would want me to feel forgiven and to get on with life.
Yeah.
And to try and listen to that rather than let the self-critical voice, the voice that's causing you to feel a second dose of horror. There's the grief and then there's the guilt. To let go of the guilt.
And I've had friends who've said to me, I wish I had got my pet euthanized earlier because it was really suffering and it was not fair on them. And I selfishly pet them here. And so you got the opposite.
Yeah. And I think religion has a lot to do with it. Talking to, if someone's pet's just died, what do they believe has happened next? And I remember a 5-year-old girl explaining to me that her dog was now sitting on a cloud. And so we often talk about the cloud. And if I'm flying somewhere, she sometimes will say to me, if you see my dog, please say hi. And it's actually quite
beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
I always think, I know a lot of people think of it as the Rainbow Bridge idea, that one day when you die, you end up at Rainbow Bridge and all the pets you've ever had will be there.
I said, that's where I want to be, I don't care about humans.
Not yet, Mary.
When I go, I want to be in the dog kingdom.
Yes,
I want to
exactly.
be with them.
Forget the relatives. We'll just be on Rainbow Bridge. Keep us there. But I honestly, when I go for an operation, when they're putting me under, I make myself start thinking of Rainbow Bridge, and I literally see all my pets, and it's just the most beautiful idea. And it helps.
I always imagine on my deathbed, then I see all my dogs coming, waiting to welcome me.
We need a big bridge, Mary.
You should need a boulevard.
Okay, so what about if you've got feelings of anger towards a vet who you feel didn't do the right thing or made a bad job of it? Because again, that's a very common thing, that we feel the vet could have done more, or they gave the wrong treatment. I think we've all experienced that. And it's a fine line knowing whether it was actually a poor decision by the vet or whether you just need something to blame.
Yeah, and I think whether it's a vet or a doctor or a caregiver, when there's been a death, it's so easy to blame that person. And maybe rightly, but it doesn't help. And I think that's why in some research studies looking at which are the physicians most likely to be sued, it's not necessarily those who lack technical skills, it's those who lack interpersonal skills. We're much more forgiving of the vet who you're like, I know they did their best, they just weren't very good. As opposed to, he was very good, there was still an error, but I hated him from the start. He wasn't kind to my dog. Or it's like that. That's very hard to forgive like an interpersonal problem. And I think it's hard. How do you let go of that? Do you want to have a lawsuit against them? Do you want to imagine talking to that pet that died and say,
I think
hey,
you beat yourself up so much and you think, I should have taken the dog to
that's-
another vet.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't have just left, I should have made that decision. It's all should have.
yeah, if only I hadn't.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very normal. And people cycle through it, which is one of the reasons why like the 5 stages of grief are not something I really believe in, because I think we do go through all of these terrible stages, sometimes simultaneously and sometimes we go backwards. I don't think we get to a place of acceptance necessarily very easily. And I think maybe women and men might go through this slightly differently. I think women tend to reach out more, they express more emotion. Men tend to go inwards more, they tend to feel more anger. So where women might express depression and sadness and loss, men, it's either silence or anger. And so much more emotionally restricted. And so the healing process happens a bit differently for both. That was a big generalization, but I think...
And I think there is a big difference between a good death, and believe me, there is a good death, and a bad death. And I think when your pet is taken away, or you're absolutely ambushed with a very sudden death, that is particularly acute, as opposed to a good death where you have nursed your pet to the very end. The transition into sort of heaven, maybe on ethical advice from a vet, but you're with your pet at the time. And I think depending on whether it's a good death or a bad death can very much dictate how you feel afterwards. You can take some comfort that you were there holding him or her, or you can be absolutely racked with guilt that you weren't there. So I do strongly believe that there is a good death and a bad death, and try and aspire to give my pets a good death as much as I can.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of a real challenge when people think about, do I want to be there when my dog is euthanized?
And it's a personal decision. Not everybody can do it, and I think that has to be respected.
I remember one person, he had a super close relationship with his dog, and he was a hunter. And he told his dog he wasn't going to have anybody else euthanize his dog, but the dog needed to be euthanized. He told the dog to sit and shot it. And I just go, oh my God, what kind of trauma is he carrying? But everybody does it their way.
Yeah, and I think when it's a younger animal, that's also very hard when you feel like they haven't had their full life and they suddenly got ill and died. It's, it feels wrong.
Yeah.
And that's hard to deal with.
I mean, for the shelter, we are no kill, but if the decision will be based on what the vet says, and of course through our experience. If the dog really cannot eat anymore, or the dog is in great pain and there's really no way of helping the dog out, then we will say we'll let the dog go. We don't want to see the dog suffering anymore. If it's gasping for air, I think it's cruel to just prolong
100%.
that. Then we will let the dog go.
And actually, something I learned myself from euthanasia is that actually it's the greatest act of selfless love. You're saying, look, I want you to be in my life forever, but I'm letting you go because I love you that much. I don't want to see you suffer.
Yeah.
And it's quite a profound moment when that clicks. That this is where vets normally advise you on when is the right time.
But the dog is just the start of it, or some operation. But some people just don't want to spend that money.
It can come down to money, and sometimes
I don't want to see my dog go through that stage. I'll put down. But you're not even trying.
I understand.
You're not even trying to save the dog.
Well, I guess operations. Sometimes it's not even a cost; it's putting your pet through pain.
No, but
and if the
many of our
prognosis isn't
dogs
good, pets are costly, and
yes,
while we can afford it,
yes,
not everybody
it's costly.
can.
It's very costly.
Volunteering at SPCA, people literally be having our management meeting and people would be dumping pets by the gate, and often they were old, they were sick, and people, whether they can't deal with it or they can't afford to deal with it, you do need to have reserves for that time of life for your pet, and it's not just for the the puppy times, the fun youthful times. They're part of your family and it should be for life. And you're there till the
Perhaps
end.
in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, it is the ultimate act. You know, every case is individual,
Yeah.
heartbreakingly so. But to Mary's point, yes, I sometimes feel that there is this sort of
Creating memories that last when your pet has died. Is there anything you do, Vicky, to keep the memory alive?
yeah. I mean, I sleep with Fiona's fur even now under my pillow, and I've still got her collar. Which is very precious to me. So I've sort of derived comfort from those two little acts, and I find photographs even now still very emotional.
Yeah.
So I don't hoard lots of photographs and videos. That's just not for me. But I know it works for other people.
Yeah, I hate Apple phones, when they give you that memory video.
Yes,
And you're in the middle of a meeting and then it's your dog that you loved so much and it just triggers you.
pet friends or memories of
Yes.
2024.
Yeah. Is there anything you do, Mary?
Tons of
Really?
photographs. We have them on Facebook, and also sometimes I'll just play back and look at the happy times. We gave them outing by the seaside, swimming, running. And you feel good, but also sad.
Yeah.
But you feel great that, you've given those dogs good times.
Well, I think definitely if you've adopted dogs from animal shelters or ex-breeding farm dogs, there's that extra layer of, it's almost like you were there, you rescued them,
I still have a
you're
lot
their
of the
saviour,
herbs,
and it's
after the
a big
cremation,
feeling.
they're all in my office. But of course, over time, after a certain period, we'll send them off to the sea. But all the new ones, they're all in my office.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a cupboard
can't
full
bear
of little
to part
urns of photos on
I've
them.
got a collection of urns. They make good paperweights.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Vicky.
Do you tell people that their paperweight is this dog or that?
I don't think there are so many now.
It's such a huge paper.
I know. Yours is like a big rock. But there's all sorts of things happening now where people are turning their pet into like diamonds and like pendants and all
wearing
sorts of
around the
things.
neck. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Really?
But
Like
what do
they
you do when you
compress?
have your bath? You have to take it out, right?
I wouldn't be able to
Because you
do
put
that.
the ashes inside the pendant. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
ashes inside the
special-
pendant.
Yeah.
Use
special
the ashes
pendant.
to make it, don't they?
Yeah.
got
That's a
friends
special.
Compress the ash into like a
Yes.
Yes.
stone.
into
And then you
into
take
a lock.
a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just take a little bit
Don't worry, I
of
haven't got
ashes and then put into the pendant, and then you wear it.
Yeah, and no, I mean everybody has their own ways. So
And it's a tricky balance between, I think, like letting go and remembering.
yeah,
That, you don't want to stay in the world of remembering too much. You need to get on with regular life. But then you don't want to forget what's an important part of your life.
That's right.
I guess that's grief in general, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
You can do this online as well. I like to create a memory book and have my favourite photos. And I also write down characteristics of that pet that passed, because I find that in time you do forget the little things. And it's just nice recording this. I mean, I do bawl my eyes out when I read them, but I think for me, it's just capturing all those favourite funny moments, little mannerisms, things that I loved so much. And it helps. I've got rather a lot of these online now, but these are memory books. And then, Vicky, you kindly recommended a book to me.
I'm going to plug this book.
Yes.
It's by Jeanne Wycherley. Do not read this when you are in the acute stages of grief, because it will just make you feel frustrated. But as and when you're ready, maybe a few weeks or a few months, but just when you're ready, I found great comfort from reading this book.
It's called Losing My Best Friend.
Right. It was just it's very simple. It's very easy to read. It's beautifully written. And I just found that it helped make sense of that sort of melting pot of emotions that I felt after the loss of whether it's my dog or my guinea pig. And I always turn to this a few months after, but not immediately after. So just caveat when you're ready to read something.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book, and it does help, I think,
It does, yeah.
process the emotions.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is it seems to me like some of the children who have bonded most tightly and most deeply with their pets are often children who didn't have a very supportive background. I think of abused kids who didn't learn to trust because mum and dad were abusive or neglectful, and they would go to school and they'd get beaten up, perhaps because of the attitude they'd bring in from the house. And then they'd get a rabbit or a cat or whatever it might be, and the incredible bond with an animal, and that they form something so incredibly important and deep. And so when people can't understand the grief that a person has over a pet, I think, gosh, if you only understood where this person was coming from, you might think differently. Because the pet provided
All of that.
sanity and health, physical health sometimes, I think, and provided love, which they didn't otherwise receive.
And a reason to get up every morning and stay on the planet.
And it's not just kids who've been abused, but I think especially kids who've been abused, that the preciousness of a pet can be huge.
Well, they've done that experiment, I think, at some of the jails in the US with inmates. And, you know, the majority of them have all come from very, very troubled backgrounds. And they've committed absolutely heinous crimes. And these are high security prison environments. And they've done this, this sort of pilot where they've given a dog or an animal, whether it's a bunny rabbit or a guinea pig, to these inmates who were genuinely sort of perceived to be contemptuous people. And the kind of the bond that they've developed with these pets that they've been entrusted with is absolutely amazing. And you may say, why would they gravitate? Why would they channel all of their love to these animals? But they do. So it's very, very interesting. And I think it just goes to my point earlier on that, you know, they're with us in the good times, they're with us in the bad times. And it's a very pure, uncomplicated love that they give to us, which we don't get in our day-to-day human relationships.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about inmates and mice.
Yes, again, I think there's been lots and lots of studies about this sort of inmates, you know, developing friendships or bonding with the sort of the wild mice which come in and out of their jail cells. And again, it's just, I always feel that as humans, we have all of this love and we've got to channel it somewhere. And whether it's another human being or whether it's an animal. So, and they say that, and I'm not particularly spiritual, but they do say that, you know, humans are put on earth to love. They don't always say what we're supposed to love, but a lot of us do love our animals.
Very true. So, moving on, when's the right time to get another pet? What do you think, Mary?
When you feel you're ready. So actually, I always tell people, well, if you're not ready, then just come down to the shelter and play around, bond with the dogs. You may just chance upon one which you feel that can fill your life again.
I tried that. I had, when my Hugo, who I adored, when he died, I went to the shelter just for some pet cuddles, and I drove away with 3 of them. So yeah.
Oh, well done.
Just my parents, they lost the family dog. She had a bad death. It was very, very traumatic for them. And I think they waited for about 8 months until they were ready. But my dad was really, really getting quite depressed, actually. And I think my mom pinpointed that it really was, the trigger was the loss of his beloved dog. So she decided that they would get another dog. And they went around, obviously, in my family, it always has to be a rescue dog. So they went to the nearest rescue centre and took home this dog, and he's been so much better ever since. So I just think it is as and when you're ready, but just channeling that love somewhere can help you enormously.
And I always think there's so many beautiful little souls in need of a home that, it's the right thing to do to keep going with this, no matter how heartbreaking it is. And we do mourn each one that goes, and they're individual characters that you can never replace. But I feel like it's almost our duty to help the next one and the next one and the next one, no matter how much
Ella,
heartbreak.
maybe you should come to the shelter more
already
often.
I can already see something happening here.
She will empty the shelter.
I've already got enough, thank you. But
I think it's a tough question. Like I think of a couple who were retiring, and they were very clear that when the last pet died, they wouldn't have a new one because they wanted to travel around the world. Because they explained that by having a pet, it's more constraining than having a child, because at least a child you can take into a restaurant when you travel.
Yeah.
yes.
And dog died, and within 2 days it was like they were going bananas. They're like, we have to have another pet. And I don't know that it was the right decision for them, because they had already mindfully decided not to. My sense is it was kind of impulsive and out of grief, and that if they had waited a few months, they might have. But it was the decision they made.
I think when you lose a pet, for me personally, there is an eerie silence that descends on your home. It's the weirdest time. It's like time stops. You feel this emptiness, but you also feel your pet. So it feels so wrong.
It's like an echo.
Not to have them. It's unbearable. And
I worked really long hours when my Fiona died. I just used to dread coming home because she wouldn't be at the door wagging her tail to meet me. So I was massively productive at work. I'm sure my line manager was delighted.
Yeah.
But I did used to dread going home.
So I can understand why some people need to fill up. And it's an energy of love and fun and joy. It's so infectious to have a pet in your life. Okay, so we're going to go into our final thoughts now. Coming up with some positive messages. So if you're sitting there, your pet has died, or your pet is on the verge of dying, what are our positive thoughts to close with?
I think when your pet's dying, there aren't really any positive thoughts. I think you just feel absolutely, it's just awful. The positive thoughts perhaps don't set in until several months later, as you're traversing your grief journey. And I think I'm still navigating my grief journey with Fiona. So I just think now I can look back now. Before I couldn't look back; it was too painful. But now I can sit back and look and remember her vividly, without getting emotional, and thinking what a great dog she was. But it's still painful.
Yeah. Mary?
It's always painful. I mean, I have my own pets as well, and there's one particular dog I really love a lot. Until now, it's about more than 10 years is gone, but until now, I still always think of him, and I have a big picture of him just in my bedroom facing me.
What was his name, Mary?
Magic.
Oh, Magic.
Yeah, it was a lovely dog, big fella. But every time I sit on the floor, he'll come and sit on my lap. I say, oh, just too big for me, But lovely, lovely dog. Very protective of me as well. So if I'm in a room doing my work, he will sit right across the door. And anybody wants to talk to me, he will growl. You can't come in. Very nice boy, really. I miss him so much. Even until now, he's one dog I will never forget. Really, I always think of him.
For me, I just feel like that love still exists. It stays in your heart. No, I don't feel like that goes.
They leave paw prints on our heart.
That's exactly it. So as tragic as it is, and as much as I do cry regularly for my lost fur kids, I feel the love still. It doesn't die.
Somehow it's not the same like losing a human being, with dogs. Your pet is somehow it's just more special. I don't know. Yeah.
For me, I think it's complex. Like there can be relief, there can be grief, there can be, and I think the relief can be because the pet may no longer be in pain, or there can be relief that, oh my God, now I can get back to my life again. There might be feelings of hostility towards the pet, like you've abandoned me by dying, as illogical as that might be, and that we might feel guilt or ill will towards the dead pet, or we might feel horrendous grief, and we might feel all of them quickly, including callousness, and it can be so confusing. And I think for people to kind of go, and that's what death sometimes is. It's okay that we might cycle through this whole horrendous panoply of emotions and might think we're crazy or bad, but actually that's what death can be. And so if I had anything to say, it'd be like to try and accept whatever stuff, acceptable and politically correct or unacceptable and politically incorrect, that comes up. And that's just part of the process.
So thank you for joining our podcast today on Ella's podcasts. If you know someone going through pet bereavement, then please share this episode with them. And if you'd like part 2, please let us know on Facebook at Ella Podcasts and message me. Please rate and share. And sending you a big hug during this time.